Every adversity should lead to an opportunity. So what's next? And that's kind of how I've always looked at my life ever since then. And that really shaped my life more than anything is sports. But yeah, I
Mhm.
would say that every step of the way, I've just had some adversity that's would I think break a lot of people. Imagine like you see yourself as an athlete, and then you can't do that anymore. I
Mm.
just, by the way, I jogged about 15 feet the other day and sprained my neck. All right, so those days are over. They're gone for sure. Like who sprained their neck jogging? And I wasn't really
They're
even
done.
jogging. Okay, even at that, I was half-assing the jog. Okay,
All right, everybody, welcome back to Say More Words. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Tamika Taylor. I have my good friend Chris Helms here, and I am super obsessed with this human, so I'm super excited to share him with you. But first, before we introduce Chris, will you tell us what the song of the day is?
it is "Shakedown" by Kid Rock.
Yes. One other person on the podcast picked a Kid Rock song. Can you guess who that was?
Would his name start with J and end with Ames?
Close.
No.
It's his mini me, my daughter. My daughter.
Yeah, Kid Rock's
Her
like my
song of the
spirit
day was
animal.
Ba with Her song of the day was Ba with the Ba.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So, out here raising them right. So, everybody, I have Chris Helms here. He is part of the Black Diamond Club with me. That's how we met probably about a year ago now. Um, and he is, well, you know what? Why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, Chris?
Well, I am currently president of my company, Federal Injury Centers. It's a franchise, which is super cool, like McDonald's. We follow all the same rules as every other franchise in this country, except we focus on injured federal employees. So, like the mailman, VA nurses, TSA agents, those are our patients. When they get hurt, we fix them. And we have right
Mm.
now about to have 60 locations in 27 states and counting. That's it in a nutshell.
Woo!
That's it.
I love it. Chris, you're on here as part of and to remind y'all, I'm starting this series and it's called The New Narrative. You know, it kind of combats that nonsense that happened in 2020 where like, this is the new normal. And I was like, this isn't the new normal. This is just a temporary circumstance. But the new narrative exists to help others who are kind of going through a hard time realize that there's another way out. You hear people all day talk about how their trauma is bad or their experiences are bad or like this happened to them and it's bad. And the new narrative exists to show that you can be successful on the other side of things that have happened to you in your life. You can be successful on the other side of adversity. And you can look back on things that have happened and be like, thank you. Like, thank you for actually happening to me because it made me get my head out of my ass. So, Chris, you are a highly successful individual today. But I know because of who you are in our friendship that life has not always been like that for you. And so, could you tell us a little bit about what that new narrative looks like? Like, what have you faced? What challenges have you come across that when they were happening, you're like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And now you're happening and you're like, thank God it happened.
Yeah. So you honestly just described my entire life since I was a child. I was mentioning to you before that I've often felt like my life has been conspiring against me so that I would fail. But I'm here still.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still punching away at it every single day. And it's been that way since I was just a boy. Okay. As a kid, I was an athlete. I'm 5 foot nothing. Okay. But I got a giant heart. I love to compete. And in particular, football. And I was really good at football. I mean, like really good. For a little guy, I was really good. I remember going to my 10-year class reunion and a guy came up to me and he said, Chris, you used to knock the taste out of my mouth. And I said, I know. I'm not sure why you're even standing today. I didn't do it hard enough. I was really, really good. But then when I was 16, I blew up my ACL. And so football was kind of done. I had to have 3 surgeries over the course of 2 years, my football career was over. And I thought, man, that's just awful because I was definitely going to be a college football player. It was for sure going to happen. No question about it. And then boom, just like that, it was over. Well, now what? What am I without sports? What am I without football? That was my whole identity. And so, I ran track. So, well, I'll just do something else. I'll create a new identity. And with a blown out knee, with a giant offensive lineman football brace on my knee, I was a two-time MVP of my track team in varsity. I couldn't be stopped. And that's kind of my personality. It's just, well, every adversity should lead to an opportunity. So what's next? And that's kind of how I've always looked at my life ever since then. And that really shaped my life more than anything is sports. But yeah, I would say that every step of the way, I've just had some adversity would, I think, break a lot of people. Imagine like you see yourself as an athlete and then you can't do that anymore. By the way, I jogged about 15 feet the other day and sprained my neck. All right, so those days are over. They're gone for sure. Like who sprains their neck jogging? And I wasn't really even jogging. Okay, even at that, I was half-assing the jog. Okay, but so anyways, there's that. I could keep going. Okay, but like every adversity should lead to an opportunity.
I think what's really powerful about that first story that you told is that you were presented with an adversity that most people would be like, well, it's done. And you took that and you did create an opportunity, but before you even created an opportunity, you had to see the redirection. And I think that's where people get lost. Something happens to them, and then they just think everything's done, but they don't see that what happens, there's a redirection literally right around the corner. They're just so blind with rage, hurt, shame, blame, guilt to then get to the opportunity.
That's right. Yeah, and most people can't get past the disappointment, the sadness, the anger. But and those are normal, I think. You just have to find a way through them. You got to get to the other side of it. Otherwise, where are you at? You're just in a dark hole, digging yourself deeper and deeper. So you got to be able to climb out of it. And I've been also fortunate. I've had lots of people to help me out of the hole. I've never been alone, although often I feel alone. Often, very often, I feel like, man, thank God for Jeannie. Because other days without her, I'm like totally alone. And so when you feel that way, you got to pick yourself up, But I've been through all the adversities. I've been divorced before. It was awful in the moment, right? But now I have this woman that I can't live without. So it wasn't the end of the world, but at the moment it felt awful. And now I was just telling her, I imagine going a day without you. What a great opportunity that came from that adversity, Yeah. Just incredible. And, take how I got to this place I'm at professionally. I managed a practice not far from you in Texas for 21 years. And the more successful the practice became, the more my boss seemed to hate me. Until one day, I requested to be fired. Please fire me today. Today's got to be my last day. I'm out. So, boom, I went from making six figures, like a lot of six figures, to making nothing today. And guess what? I only got 3 weeks of severance after 21 years, which is fine. I only needed, as I said then, I only needed 2. Appreciate the bonus,
Yeah.
Because it's just me. Like, all right, let's do something else now. Let's go. And then that happened. I'm like, my identity was that place because 21 years, like 2 decades, that was who I am. And it took me a long time to find out who I am today. And, a couple of years ago, I was still kind of discovering this when I first met Sean from BDC, right? Sean said, you got to find out what about you is holding you back and dump it, basically. What about you is keeping you from being the most of who you can be? And I was like, oh, it broke me. It broke me. It's one of the many times that broke me.
Yeah.
But, those adversity times kind of tell you who you are. And by the way, that place I left was the largest federal workers' comp practice in the known universe. Before I was there, it didn't do federal work comp at all. Then we became that.
Found it.
And as big as it was, this month we're going to make more money than that office ever made in a year.
Mm,
Every adversity can be an opportunity if you let it be.
yeah. What would you say is the biggest pivot you had to make with yourself? Because it truly, just as Sean said, it's self work. Like, oftentimes, not oftentimes, every time, it's us holding us back. So, what would you say is like one of the major keys and shifts in your own identity that you had to break through in order to keep going?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. I've never been in a room where I felt comfortable being there ever.
Oh,
I've always had imposter syndrome, always. Today, I still fight it off. I still fight it off. And like just Saturday, I took the pink box, and I was nervous to talk in front of my friends. There are no strangers in the room. Those are all my friends, and I'm still like, do I even belong here? So that's one of the things I had to do is literally look in the mirror and go, look, man, you're a badass. You're good. You're good. Now just push through it. And so the biggest pivot I had was going from answering to the man to being the man to realizing that that's a real thing. Like, I'm not just the man because of my company. It's because I'm the best in the world at what I do. And
mm,
I had to teach myself that. I had to teach myself that truth. And once I got that, I'm like,
yeah.
man, now what? What's next?
Mm, amen. So, what would you say? Because I mean, it does take a really special person to pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot. Do you know today what your truth is?
I have a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I do. I honestly believe that I was put here to save lives.
Mm.
That's a real
Be-
thing in my world, doing federal work comp. An
yeah.
enormous amount of people go homeless after they get hurt. An
Mm.
insane amount of people. A very sad number of people actually commit suicide because they can't work, they're not making any money, they can't pay their bills, their husbands or wives, they leave them. They're told disappointment their entire life. And all they did
Yeah.
was pick up a packet.
Mm.
And before me, that's just how their life had to be.
Yeah.
That's just it. And now 100% of people are getting saved. Keeps me moving.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
pushes me.
That's amazing. Let's go back to your person for a minute. What was it? Because I think there's a lot of people going through relationship things happening. I'm seeing it everywhere. And I think it's just a really important thing to note. Like, what is it in your person, in your Jenny, that that gives you not even the fight to keep going, but gives you that support to keep going?
So this goes back to my childhood. I am a natural born competitor. It's what I do. No matter what there is, I'm always pushing to beat it, whatever it is. When there's no target, I'll create one. If there's no adversary, I'll make up one. I'll find an enemy to beat. It's one of the many things. Like, I love winning in a way that's like Jordan-esque. Okay, I love winning. Like, it's not even a sickness. I freaking love it. But sometimes there's nobody to compete with. As a kid, we used to go to the Rangers games. Those toll booths at the airport.
Yeah.
Well, back in the old days, you could drive through the airport to get home. That's just how it was. I did this
Hmm.
imaginary race. I was racing out of the toll booth. Nobody in the other cars knew we were racing, but I won every time. It's just a weird thing I
Yeah.
do. I
Yeah.
like to compete. So I
Hmm.
think that's the big driver for me is I really enjoy the competition. I love it.
Mm.
I thrive in it.
What is your next step moving forward?
So very honestly, I actually came to that conclusion while I was in Dallas.
Okay.
One of the things, yeah, I'm always taking notes, and this one hit me that I got to start more businesses. I'm going to start some more companies. I need to do some more things because another thing that happens to me is I get bored.
Mm.
I get very like this thing that I do, I love and I'm passionate about, but I've already conquered it. It's conquered. Now what? So I've got a couple of other business ideas that, in fact, I got to Texas early so I could start one of them. That's why I went there 2 days early. And so we've got that rolling down the hill a little bit now. And also
Okay.
writing books as well. I like to write books, and so I'm going to write some more books.
Good. We need your knowledge.
Hey,
We
that's
need your
some of them right
passion.
there. How about those?
Are those your books?
That's three of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. What is your outside of, well, I guess helping people is your passion story. That's what
I do
keeps you
love it.
going, keeps you moving. And it's a very powerful thing to do. Like, there's a lot of people who don't realize the stats that you said, that how many people end up on the streets because of unfortunate injuries. When it comes to individuals who maybe aren't hurt physically, but are hurt on the inside, what would you say is the strongest thing you've done to support yourself?
What's the strongest thing I've done to support myself when I'm hurting on the inside?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one because I haven't really thought of that, but I can tell you that I'm my worst enemy.
Mm.
I'm like probably my biggest supporter, but I'm my worst enemy. The whole imposter syndrome thing, and nervous to speak in front of my friends, which is weird because I public speak for a living
Yeah.
without sweating. But I think the thing that I have to just keep telling myself is you're good enough, man. Like you're there. Like you made it. Look at all the crap you had
Mm.
to go through to get there. Let yourself up a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm constantly having to say, just like let yourself up.
Mm. It's almost like this thing that I do. It's called like proof seeking. Like when you get down, it's like, here's proof XYZ that I'm capable. Here's all the proof that I can gather from today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. And I have the benefit of getting a lot of feedback, like from patients and doctors that work with me because we're like everywhere on social media. I had so many people this week say, "Yeah, I saw you on Facebook. I saw you on Instagram." It's like, man, if you haven't seen me, you're not looking. Because we live there.
Right.
That's my home. But I get a lot of people that give a great feedback. Just great feedback all the time, and sometimes I have to go read my reviews. To remember, like,
Mm.
okay, this mission's working.
Yeah.
Some people don't read the reviews. I read my reviews.
Amen.
100% positive, by the way.
Yay. Good. Oh, you're
Yeah.
changing lives, and you're doing it from a heartfelt place. And I think that's where some people get lost, is that, and especially in business sometimes, like they like to think that people are doing it just for the money, but in fact, like you're doing it from the heart center, like you're doing it for humanity, and that's what makes a huge difference.
One of the number one reason that is when I was a boy, I may have told you the story. I'm not sure, but I think I say boy. I was in my mid 20s, and I was traveling back and forth to Little Rock from Texas, and I was driving with my uncle. My uncle was one of the first group of store managers for Walmart supercenters. When the supercenter first came out. Before that, it
Yeah.
was just like Walmart, right? They just sold
Yeah.
whatever junk. And but his store was the fastest to $1 billion. All right, no high school education. He was in and out of drug rehab. No college for sure. Okay, this guy had no reason to have any success whatsoever. And but he was the fastest to $1 billion. And I said, "How'd you do it?" He said, "I love everybody." Like that was it. That was it.
Mm.
So guess what? I love everybody. Everybody.
Yeah.
And if I don't love you, I just won't deal with you. I definitely won't make you feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Right? We just won't know each other anymore. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Like
and
that
and
helps.
that's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of like the space of like karma is as karma does. Like what you do to her, she does back to you. And so like if I don't love you, I'm not going to wish ill on you because I don't want that coming back, but you can stay over there and I'm going to stay over here. And I think that's a really powerful thing. That's one of the things that I truly align with, that like I tell people all the time that I love them, and some people are really uncomfortable with it. And I'm like, I'm so sorry that, there's been a space in your life where you didn't feel like you could receive love, but I'm going to love the shit out of you. And eventually you're going to be okay with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You know, um, I don't know why this made me think of it, but speaking of adversity and all this stuff, I had a business partner in the previous iteration of this company, because we're on our third iteration of the company, by the way. Most people don't know we didn't start as a franchise. I shut down the first two companies to start this one. You want to talk about adversity? Shutting down and starting over was scary, right? We went from all the income to
Mm-hmm.
none of the income, back up from zero. But at the time, we were partnering with some doctors in various states. One of those being Florida, where I'm at. And to tell you the closeness we had with this doctor got ordained to be a minister and married Jeannie and I.
Oh.
And then he quit the company and sued us. And there's a long story to it. I don't want to tell it all because
Yeah.
you want to see Chris, who loves everybody, get angry. That'll get it done. But to show
Mm-hmm.
you that every adversity should lead to an opportunity. When we were partnering with him, he was really adamant about don't put more doctors in Florida. He wanted Florida to be his whole territory, and it was a real point of contention. And so I was stuck. I was kind of like just locked in. Everything behind me is freaking the ocean, okay, the Gulf of Mexico, and then I got this little thing right here. And so he sued me. And when he sued me, I settled it. Whatever, it's over. But as a result, I opened 13 offices in Florida. So now he's backed up to the ocean, and I got everything all the way to Manhattan, right? We had 11 people driving from South Carolina to Clearwater to get treatment. And then I put 12 offices in between, or 11 or whatever, in between here and there. Guess where they go now?
Damn. All
They
your
go to South
offices.
Carolina. They go to South Carolina to Federal Injury Centers. That's right. Every adversity leads to an opportunity if you allow it.
Mm. If you allow it. And that's the key part of it. All it's like
Yeah,
you have to allow it.
that's right. I got to tell the rest of my team, like, get past it. That's in the rearview mirror. Don't look back. Just
Yeah.
don't look back.
Mm-hmm. It's not
That
who we
works.
are.
Yeah.
Mm. That's so powerful. I
Hey, you want to know when
like
you started writing these books? Just
when.
speaking of adversity, this one right here is my first book. I was listening to a Gary V podcast right when we got locked down with COVID. Now, prior to the lockdown, Jeannie and I were flying 54 times every 52 weeks to speak publicly to federal employees, which was awesome. I was getting the message out in a big way, the biggest way that's ever happened in the history of the world. And then, like that, I can't get on an airplane. Now you're supposed to leave the house. I'm listening to Gary Vee, and Gary Vee said he was talking about an interview he was doing, or he was coaching a client. And in his coaching session, he said to the client, "You mean you don't even have a book?" I swear I hit pause and started talking because I didn't have a book. And Gary Vee's
Yeah.
right, usually, right? And I wrote that first book in 3 days.
Damn.
In 3 days, it was at the printer. It was done. Just like every adversity can be an opportunity if you let it be. And now I've written 4. So it's
I
worked
love
okay.
it. It's going fine, I guess.
It's going okay.
Well, Chris, I so appreciate you sharing this because I think there's so many people out there right now, especially like I don't know what happened at the beginning of 2024, whether the cosmos are off or what. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But there's this great movement right now where people are one needing support, but two needing stories of adversity that other people survived. And part of the reason why Say More Words exists is so that other people can hear stories that of success basically. And I just appreciate you coming on and sharing this because that I mean it's just so very powerful to for other people to hear. Like just because it's happening right now doesn't mean it's always going to stay that way.
No, it's not. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. Just start over.
Yep.
Go again.
Mm-hmm.
Just go again.
Yeah. Ugh,
Yep.
it always rises. It always does. It always does. Well, I so appreciate you. I'm going to link your socials because you are everywhere. So if anybody doesn't know you, they do get to know you and get to hear you because I think, I mean, you have a really very powerful voice and I appreciate you as a human. And I think everyone else who's listening to this will too. So I'm going to link all your socials below so that they can follow you. And I so appreciate you and our friendship and what I've had the chance to learn from you and talk with you and see and just kind of be on that race together.
Well, that feeling is definitely mutual. I think that
Thank you.
I think when I met you, God was watching.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean
That
that.
that hit my words of affirmation really good. So, Chris, I'm sure we will have you on again. I appreciate your time, and y'all, I will see you again next week. We are going to continue on bringing stories of the new narrative and different ways that you can pivot, adjust, change, and grow. So, we will see you soon.